So in the second section, we will be looking at food security in Nigeria, so we understand as a country where we are. And for this, I'll be doing a mini slide explanation. Why is it that we're having so much poverty and hunger today, and what's the word now? Is there a cause for alarm for the nation? What does the future of food look like for us in the country? Now, the reality is there are four key things that are mitigating against us in the country why there is so much poverty and hunger. First, our demographics. Now, you realize the fact that today we are about 193 million Nigerians. Now, it is important for you and I to understand this, that today we are about 193 million Nigerians. And according to different sources, what we know is by the year 2050, we will be at least between 400 and 450 million Nigerians by the year 2050. Now, for us, this is frightening. Why is it frightening? You have to ask yourself this question. As at today in Nigeria, are we able to feed ourselves? The answer would be no. So how do we feed ourselves then in the future? Now, this is the harsh reality or the bitter truth. It is predicted that by the year 2050, the world population will be about 10 billion. As of today, we are about 7 billion. Now, what that means is, by the year 2050, the world population would have increased by 33%. And the world is saying that for that increment of population by 33%, the world is looking at increasing food production by 70%. Now, when you look at the fact that in Nigeria we are at 193 million, and we are looking at falling into between 400 and 450 million Nigerians by the year 2050, that is well over 130% increase in population. The world is only having 33% increase in population. Yes, we are part of the world, but as a segment of the world, we are actually experiencing well over 130% increase in population, which means our food production must be more than what the world is saying they want to produce. Why the world is saying we want to produce 70% more food, Nigeria should be looking at producing about 200% more food. Now, another problem with this is there is also what we call urban migration. Now, urban migration meaning you have people leaving the rural areas going to the so-called city and urban areas in the name of looking for greener pasture. Obviously, we cannot blame them. Everybody is looking for the next best thing, the next good thing. Because of that, people are leaving the villages. And with people leaving the villages, it means we are having population cramped up in a small area, which is also going to mean there is need for more food, yet there are less people producing the food that we feed the more. Then if you add to this the fact that as at today in Nigeria, the average age of the Nigerian farmer is about 60 years. Now, what that means is by the year 2050, the people that are the majority or the bulk of the farmers today will be about 90 years old, too weak to go to the farm. So the question then would become, how do we feed ourselves then? When those that are in charge or responsible for feeding us today become too old to produce food tomorrow. And add to this the fact that youths are not interested in agriculture. Now, don't get me wrong, we understand why youths are not interested in agriculture, because one, agriculture does not look, pardon my language, sexy, does not look enticing. People always say, oh, people are leaving agriculture because they are going to oil. I remind people, I say, before oil came along, there was agriculture. Oil looked like the next big thing that could actually give them the kind of life they wanted. They picked up oil. Then there was banking sector, telecommunications. People are looking for a job that would actually ensure that they remain well fed. They don't want the kind of job where you are working like an elephant but eating like an ant. So we must find a way to ensure agriculture becomes enticing and profitable. Now, another thing again that is mitigating against us in Nigeria is the impact of climate change. Now, the harsh reality remains that our generation is the first generation that is feeling the full weight and impact of climate change. Fortunately, we are also the first generation that has what it takes to actually tackle climate change, and may be the last generation that can actually stop the irreversible impact of climate change. When I say irreversible, meaning if we don't stop it now and there is a change, a total or a complete change, that the temperature changes even if by 1 degree or 2 degrees, it becomes almost irreversible to go back to what it was before. Now, what are the problems or what are the things contributing to the climate change? Of course, you know, number one, you have things like bush burning, we have things like gas flares happening around the south region of the country, we have the continual tribal wars, we have the Boko Haram and all of that. All of these are contributing to climate change. And of course, we live in a country where, as a big man, you have to have 15, 20 cars. The husband will have a car, the wife a car, the children their own cars. And we no longer do what you call carpooling. All of this releasing its own level of carbon monoxide. Add to this the fact that our agriculture that we are trying to push today is that which is mechanically driven, which is also not good for the environment because of the carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide that they would have to emit. And all of these would result in, first, ensuring that there is high level of greenhouse warming. Now, when we talk about greenhouse warming, many people see this as, oh, it's happening here, it is not happening here. And the way I try to make people understand this thing is, try to imagine last 2 years, how was the temperature like, how was the heat, was the place hotter? Now, let me explain that there is a difference between climate and weather. They are not the same thing. Weather is a short-term thing. When you say weather, weather is, oh, is it rainy or is it dry? Is it sunny or is the rain falling? That is weather. When we talk about climate, we are looking at a period of at least 10, 15, 20 years. How has the temperature changed in this period? Because one of the impacts of climate change is weather itself becomes unpredictable. Understand this? The climate change would affect weather. The weather itself becomes unpredictable. A perfect example of that is, you realize farmers this year have been confused because they really did not know when rain was going to start falling in Nigeria. For farmers, they need the first rain before they say, okay, now let's start planning. But the time they expected the first rain to fall, the rain did not fall. In some places, the first rain came. Now, the second rain was expected 2-3 weeks, a month after, but the second rain did not come. So that affected the time they were going to plant, such that we are now having crop instability. Now, let me make this clear. Last year, people were complaining that the foodstuffs were getting more expensive. This year is worse. If we do not make deliberate attempts to stop the impact of climate change, next year would be worse. Now, put this in your mind. Don't forget the fact that most of the foods that we eat in Nigeria come from the northern and middle belt of the country. Yes, I know we have farmers in Ogun State or your state and all of that, but the reality still remains the bulk of our food comes from the middle belt and the northern belt. And they are the people that are having the worst impact of climate change. They are the most hit, and they are having the worst impact of climate change. So if we are not able to arrest this quick, it is going to affect our food source. Thirdly, we have natural resources also playing a huge part in poverty and hunger. We have deforestation. Today we have people just going into the forest and they cut down trees just because they want to produce A or B. Now, this is really bad for the environment. Why? One of the functions of trees is to mop up the carbon monoxide and all of that from the atmosphere. And as it mops this off, it would also reduce the impact of climate change. Yes, I have heard the rhetoric of cut one tree, plant two more. As beautiful as that sounds, the reality is that is not as efficient as it is supposed to be. Why? A tree will take about 20 to 25 years to grow. Now, what this means in essence is, if I plant a tree today, that plant that I planted today is going to take about 20-25 years for it to get to full maturity. However, now this is the sad part. In that 20-25 years that it will take that small plant that I planted today to grow to full maturity, the carbon monoxide that the mature tree would have been able to mop off would be accumulating in the air. Which means by the time that small tree gets to full maturity, there is already a build-up of carbon monoxide that it cannot clean up in a jiffy. I hope you understand what I'm trying to explain. So instead of saying cut down a tree and plant 2 more does not really help in mopping up the carbon monoxide. 2, another function of the tree is that the roots of the tree holds the particles of soil together, such that even if you have a heavy rainfall, you're not going to have things like gully erosion and all. For this to make sense, try and take a trip to any forest. You realize that when you move inside forest, you don't see gully erosions and the rest. Reason, because the roots of the trees hold the particles of the soil together. So when you cut down the tree, what you are doing essentially is you are freeing those soil particles such that any rain that comes can easily wash them away or can easily cause an erosion in that place. 2, we have what you call overcutting vegetation. By overcutting vegetation, you realize in the past what our farmers used to do was what you call bush fallowing. You plant in plot A this year. Next year, for another 4 years, you don't plant in that plot, you move to another place. But because of the fact that we are trying to make profit by all means, farmers tend to plant in the same land year in, year out. This also would reduce the yield of the plant, and because farmers are trying to increase yield, what they just do is keep throwing in all the fertilizers, the chemicals, what have you. So at the end of the day, we are sacrificing our health on the altar of profit. So the farmer keeps on throwing in all the chemicals and all of that. 1, this is bad for the environment. 2, it is bad for the consumer. 3, it is even bad for the farmer who is applying all of these chemicals. So we are killing ourselves and killing the environment for profit that neither of us would end up enjoying in the future. Another thing that farmers used to do was crop rotation. Again, that is no longer in place because all we are after today is profit making. Then I talked about then we have overgrazing. I've explained that. Then we also have fertilizer abuse. I think I've explained that too, because farmers are trying to make as much profit as they can, apply whatever it is you get. I mean, most farmers. So fertilizer abuse, you realize farmers are just doing whatever it is they can do in the name of just make money, and this is also bad for us and for the environment. Then finally, food wastage. Now at this point, let me talk to you that is watching this. Now, it has been said that about 30 to 50% of the food that we produce goes to waste. Now, that is a lot. I know somebody is like, no. It's not us that is wasting it. It's between transportation from the farm to the retailer before it gets to us. That's where the food gets wasted. Let's be sincere. Looking at your dustbin right now, how much wasted food do you have in there? Because if for every food that you are throwing away, you are part of the problem. The food you are throwing away, by the time it starts getting decayed and all of that, is going to contribute to greenhouse emission, 1. 2, the fresh water that was used to produce that food that you are throwing away has become wasted fresh water that could have been saved and used for something else. The time and the labor put into producing that food has become wasted effort. Much more than that, the money you spent buying that food has also gone what? Wasted. So we have a simple rule. If you do not need it, don't buy it. When you see it in the market, it is not a must you buy. 2, if you cannot finish the food, don't cook it. We live in, I don't understand this generation where we just try to own everything in the name of it shows you are wealthy. No. It is not really wise for us to waste food. So, as somebody that has gone through this class, make a decision, make a promise not to be a part of the generation that wastes food. Because all of this is what contributes to poverty and hunger in this nation or in the world generally. We'll stop here. We'll continue with our next section of types of aquaponics. Now that you understand the issues, the things causing poverty and hunger in the nation, we talked about the demographics, climate change, natural resources, food waste. Yes, I know there is a part good transport will play. There is a part having a good storage system will play. However, even if all of these are put in place, it will not still stop the food you waste on your plates. You want to give your children food, ensure you give them what they can finish. It is better to ask for more than throw away leftovers. Thank you. Catch you in the next video where we discuss types of aquaponics system.